Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I'm taking a short walk because we have some guests today, and they've traveled a decent distance. But there are a couple of things I want to comment on. First of all, broke away from the the computer to walk with our guests on the Appalachian Trail, and that was a kind of reminder, if you will, of our government cutting funds to our public parks. And I'll include a couple of pictures. But the reason that I'm talking is because of what did happen today that is unmistakable and that betrays the organized crime aspects of the battery in the Oval Office, traitors Trump and Vance. Visiting today is President Zelensky from Ukraine. We have, I think, rendered critical aid to that country to resist the egregious appetite that Putin has to seize Ukraine and perhaps then to wander in and among any fragile nation that he might be able to take over in NATO. Trump, as you all know, has spent an inordinate amount of time resisting support for Ukraine. And in addition, since he's been in the Oval Office, has taken steps that could compromise not only the situation in Ukraine, but the peace and security that NATO and other nation states in Europe have helped guarantee by the bonds by which we cooperate. But today was something that you don't see. It was as if we had this oaf, this bully, this mongrel threatening that if Zelensky didn't do what Trump wanted him to do, he had no cards to play. No cards to play. Do you think it's a card if we're concerned about Putin's expansionist appetite? Do you think it's a card if Europe should succumb to totalitarian governments because we are no longer present and supportive of NATO? Do you think there's no card to play when your people have sacrificed in Ukraine their lives, their families, their lifestyle in order to defend the place where they've lived for centuries, endured recent and older advances by Russia against their way of living? And so, what did Zelensky do today? Zelensky was confronted by Mad Dog Vance. And I say that because I almost hate to compare him to any animal who is superior in all respects to what Vance passes off as his kind of hillbilly way. Well, hillbilly is not defined by Vance. Vance is in a definition all by himself. He has no sense of diplomacy or tact. He doesn't believe in peace. He believes he's so righteous and so ideological that he would take steps that might cause a world war. And to blame Zelensky to be the cause of that war when Putin was the one who invaded Ukraine. And when there have been war crimes done by Putin, and we're on the other side of that occasion, of that performance. We cannot put up with this. And if America is not going to stand by the Republic of Ukraine and is going to ally itself with Russia, we no longer have a president of the United States. We have a puppet of the ever-growing threat of a renewed Soviet Union, because that's Putin's plan. Ever since Gorbachev ended the Soviet Union, Putin's one persistent ambition and pursuit is to put that back together again. We had that once, we will not have that again. We understand it's the kind of repression and complete power that Trump wants for himself, but that's not acceptable in the United States. Zelensky shows the courage that our elected representatives do not show. Outside of the governor of Maine, who gave back as good as Trump tried to give, and then better because she was in the right position, Zelensky in the room, in the Oval Office, with all those people looking on, has shown the growth required to be a war leader. And he stood up to the thin gruel that Vance passes as his arguments for leadership. And then Trump looked like, it's hard for me to choose a word that is not offensive. And so what I suggest is you see how he spoke and tell you if he doesn't look like the kind of man in a marriage relationship who's beating his wife. Because this guy is beating America. He's betraying our republic. He is acting as a traitor to our cause, and he is helping Putin win a war that he began by invading without good cause. So, to add to this offense, USAID has funds dedicated to supply energy to Ukraine. And this is the winter. And this is when the need for energy is the greatest. And they cut it off today. Cut it off. Well, let's cut off this kind of a president. This is not permissible. This is not acceptable. This is not American. I think of Reagan, whom I had little use for, who spoke about us being a house on a hill, That's not what we are now. We're well, let's put it this way. We are the people. We are the ones in the Constitution. We have a vision of America. It is the right and the correct one. And we cannot tolerate or put up with this president betraying our Constitution, our system, our laws, our good taste, our decorum. And already they're grinding out stories saying Zelensky was in the wrong. Zelensky is in the right. Zelensky is what we pretend to be. Courageous in defense of the people, courageous in helping others, courageous in treating each other equally, and believing and acting in such a way that no man is above the law. By that standard, our government is a failure. It became a failure in the days since Trump raised his hand and didn't swear in a Bible, probably had his pocket some evil. Well, we have to fight because Trump doesn't and won't. And if our Congress doesn't stand up and do everything, we should add to the 80 court cases, the protests in the streets, the individual things people are doing, mounting a war chest of chosen representatives who will fight for us and beat Republicans and change this government in 2 years. But we can't wait. Because if we wait, we won't be able to win in the midterms. We have to do everything we can now. Just listen to that tape and play it over and say what kind of a person speaks like that to another world leader. So that's what I got to say. All the best. Bye-bye.